This podcast is part of the Zeo to Hero Podcast Network.
AvenuePodcast.net.
Hello, all my beautiful people. It is time for part 2 of my conversation about Batman with Justin Lee. As you know, he has been on here many different times before, and I'm excited for you guys to hear this part as well. We talk, like I said, about Batman, but last time we got into a lot of the movies and things like that. Well, we're going to get into like the Arrowverse and some other things as well, different aspects of Batman, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this part 2 to this episode. And for those of you who are here just to hear this one, welcome. I hope that you enjoy what you hear, and I hope that you stick around and listen to some of the other great episodes I have here as well. So, if you guys are as excited as I am, then let's get this show on the road.
If you give a dad a podcast. Hey, Dad.
So where did you actually train at?
I made a really good career out of being able to bump, sell, and I had a punch me face.
I wasn't about to call you dad, so.
Seriously?
I felt like it was in an anime or something.
People get really mad at those videos for some reason. Like it triggers certain people. Yeah.
Wow.
I was actually lost as an infant, and I was taken in by a traveling group of independent wrestlers.
I love it. I'm excited for this one.
Bro.
Get punched in the face on the daily. Do you always do these interviews with your shirt off?
What?
Man, this guy won't shut up.
Again, I didn't hate Pattinson. There's just, it's like I said, certain elements of that story that really, for me, weren't Batman, and it upsets me.
I get that.
But I liked a lot of elements to it. The opening fight scene with him and that gang was cool.
Yeah, that was.
The suit is maybe my favorite.
Okay.
I really liked the suit.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really cool look. I like the shorter ears and
Yeah.
They showed a little more of his face than I think they should be showing.
Right. Well, it's more like a helmet almost than it was like a
Problem
cowl.
is, it's like you're barely covering. 3/4 of his face wasn't covered at that point. I'm just like, well, now you're just Bruce Wayne. It's like, you got to cover at least down past the nose, right?
Right. Yeah.
It felt like they were kind of showing a lot of his cheekbones. Very, very distinctive cheekbones is the problem.
Oh yeah.
There were some good moments. Honestly, I didn't care for Catwoman in that.
She was okay.
Felt like
she was
kind
kind
of
of
like she was wedged into a story that really didn't need her.
Yeah.
I really, really hated the Joker cameo
At the end. Okay. Yeah.
and then especially when they released the full cut of that scene where you saw the actual actor.
Who is the actor? I didn't see that.
He is Barry. Hold on, let me see. Barry Keoghan.
Okay. I actually have a favorite Joker, and he was never actually confirmed as the Joker. And that's Cameron Monaghan in Gotham.
Yeah, I think they said his brother was the Joker, right?
Well, he was a twin, and he played both parts as the twin and so he was Jerome and Jeremiah, I believe was the other name.
Yeah,
and man, that character, because you could see he was pulling stuff from Heath Ledger, and he was pulling stuff from all these different characters, and it worked really well. That probably Gotham is one of my favorite stories, and I was really sad when it ended.
Yeah, my biggest problem with Gotham was Jada Pinkett Smith.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
She's a terrible actress. I don't care.
I agree.
It's fine if people have their opinion on. She did that stuff like she was doing a James Cagney impression. You see, what we're gonna do is this here. Ha ha ha. I'm just like, stop. Like that's dumb. Like that's insulting to the audience.
Yeah.
But she went full camp with it, and it was just stupid.
I did like
really,
the Penguin.
She took me out of every scene.
Yeah. Penguin was a redeeming part for that, though.
I liked him. I liked the James Gordon character, and telling it through his eyes was as a protagonist was great.
Yeah.
Where they failed in that, though, was they needed to commit to getting rid of the kid that played Batman
Right.
and trading him in for an older version of himself.
Yeah,
so a
that
different
happened too
person
late.
should have been playing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's the same kid playing Batman in the final scene, right? I mean,
It is.
just
Yep.
yeah. And so I'm saying is like you should have maybe about third or fourth season upgraded to more grown up looking guy,
Right.
and you could just say just kind of like they did with Christopher Reeves, they
Yep.
CGI'd his face a little bit and made him older,
Yeah.
You just find somebody that looks like him and make do the aging thing, but
Right.
is what it is. It was a good series. I sort of kind of left out on it after a while.
Okay.
I came back every now and then, but it's just, it was a little out there sometimes. It felt to me like my other big problem with it is they were introducing too much mythos too early.
Okay. Yeah.
Which means you got this 15-year-old kid, 14-year-old kid, and all of his villains are like 20s and 30s, which meant when Batman was at peak time in his 30s, all of his villains were in their 60s.
Yeah. That didn't really work. Yeah.
Well, that makes him a little less cool. Beating up senior citizens. I mean, the Joker is 70 years old. That one kind of bugged me.
Yeah.
I get that you have to, if you're trying to keep the show, you got to introduce more Batman elements, and you can't have them all be kids, obviously. But
I mean, they could have done some stuff where they had a few more original ones too, though. I mean, because a lot of it was, characters that you see later on, like Doctor Strange and things like that. Those are all characters from later on in the show. They could have saved some of that till the later seasons and had some more original stuff that happened in the beginning.
Yeah. So getting on this kick then, what is your top 3 versions of live action Batman, let's say?
Okay. So
are we choosing from Keaton, Kilmer, West, Bale, Affleck, Pattinson, Gotham?
Okay.
So we're talking
Batmans. So Batman, not Bruce Wayne, right?
Well,
my versions.
Yeah, or you could do that. Like if you thought one guy did a better version as Bruce Wayne, then one guy did a better.
So I really like.
So start with your third.
My third, okay. I like Kilmer.
Okay, so there's an interesting, and I don't disagree with you.
Yeah,
I think Kilmer brought a certain element that was very believable.
Right.
Again, for me, as you can tell, like through this conversation, for me, my Batman has to have trauma.
Right.
And I felt that Kilmer. I felt trauma watching Kilmer.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was a guy who was, Kilmer's kind of got that distant look in his eye.
Right.
You think about Iceman from Top Gun, this, this cold, calculated person. And I felt like that's, he was constantly focused on his trauma. In fact, we see that when they go into his head or whatever at the end there, that at all times he is thinking about the death of his parents.
Right. Yeah.
And they see that on that screen.
Yeah. Because no, I definitely agree. That is probably one of the main reasons why I like him. And it's also because that's one of the first ones that I had that I saw.
The biggest problem with that movie for me was you've got too much going on with the villains.
Yeah.
Chewing up scenery as they call it, just Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones. And I don't know if you've ever heard the stories from the set. Those two hated each other.
I could believe it. Yeah, for sure.
Tommy Lee Jones hated Jim Carrey. And when he even walked up to him at one point in a restaurant right before they were about to start filming, they were both in town and they ran into each other at a restaurant. And, like Tommy Jones couldn't even stop and says, "I can't stomach what you do as an actor. You're a disgrace."
Yeah.
And basically, so what Tommy Lee Jones tried to do was every scene he's in with Jim Carrey's character, it's just him trying to out Jim Carrey.
Right.
And of course, it doesn't. You can't out carry Jim Carrey, especially 90s Jim Carrey.
Exactly.
I mean, that's like, it's like you can't keep up with that. And so it does. So we don't get Tommy Lee Jones being Tommy Lee Jones. We get him being Jim Carrey, and it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So going from that, my second one would be Michael Keaton.
Okay. Not a bad choice. let me give you my Michael Keaton break. Well, let me start with you. Why do you find, what is your Michael Keaton draw here? Why do you put him at 2?
I like the cockiness that he brings to it whenever he is Bruce Wayne.
Okay, so you really like his Bruce Wayne portrayal. I like that.
I like his Bruce Wayne. It's probably
I agree with that.
Before my number one, he was my number one Bruce Wayne. And I don't know. That's just my main reason is his Bruce Wayne to me was very believable.
So, and as a kid, that was Batman to me.
Right.
Getting to see that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
That movie didn't age well for me.
Okay.
The reason is, as I became older, I noticed a certain theme to his appearance as Batman.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't really do anything. He just shows up and then runs away from the bad guys. Like it was constantly like him showing up and then running away.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I'm here, and now it's time to get out of here. And it's very, he's not much of a fighter. He's not much of a, he's just, like think about like Batman should have wiped the floor with that Joker. He's a gangster, shoots guns. You knock the gun out of his hand. Can't fight you. You're Batman.
Right.
But yet that Joker was able to, kind of hold his own. All the villains were able to hold their own. And that was one of the Tim Burton things. He goes, I wanted him to be as regular a guy as possible. I didn't want him to have all this special training.
Right.
That it was just basically the suit and the tools that were doing all the work.
Yeah.
And that didn't age well for me because that takes away that really important element of, Batman had to go become Batman.
Right.
He didn't just, I'm a billionaire, so I'm just going to buy a nice car and a suit and I'll be Batman.
Right.
Which is basically what they kind of did with him there. And so, like I said, for me, that didn't age well.
I get that.
As we got better versions of Mike, now I liked his Bruce Wayne was fine. I didn't have a problem with it, especially 80s Bruce Wayne, that was kind of working with what the time had for him. Vicky Vale was kind of forced into that movie for me. A lot of times those love interests are, that was back before you couldn't make, well, still today, really, you can't make a superhero movie without a love interest, right?
Right.
You've always got to work one in there. Even Christian Bale, had Rachel Dawes and they always got to wedge one in there, Nicole Kidman, Michelle, of course, Catwoman, obviously that's historically accurate, but they always try to wedge that love interest in there. That I can do without that sometimes, but I get it. Somebody in a Hollywood studio is making notes on a script saying, hey, we need a love story so that the girls will want to come see this too.
Yeah.
You can even see that in the marketing, especially for Batman Begins. They had two very distinctive marketings. One was kind of towards guys, one was for girls. And on the girl marketing, you could see they were airing like all the Batman and Rachel scenes, where he's carrying her and,
right.
And they're having these kisses or, that kind of thing. But in the man marketing, it's all fight scenes and Batman being Batman. And I thought that was really interesting that you could see Hollywood at work right there. Like, we're going to get the girls to come see this on date night.
That is interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that they actually did that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know that they do that, but I've never seen them do that. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, there was one very distinctive poster. It's like Batman carrying Rachel, and you're like, well, that scene wasn't really a big, why is that, you got to, not him fighting, Ra's al Ghul or, the Scarecrow, but, that's the poster you're going with. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and then my number one is Christian Bale. I love him as Batman, and I love him as Bruce Wayne now, because he is that. It's such a big distinction between the two. It's almost like you can tell that the mask is switching between Batman and Bruce, and he's making a conscious effort to be two different people.
And Christian Bale doesn't make bad movies.
No, he doesn't.
That's one of the cool. And then Christopher Nolan doesn't make bad movies for that much.
Right.
That you're going to get something special with both those guys.
Yeah.
So that worked out so good.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were so true to so much of his origin and telling his, they kept so many elements of Batman in there, and you could tell Nolan understood the character in a way that Tim Burton didn't.
Yeah.
And so, or Schumacher for that matter. Yeah, I very much dug what they did with Christian Bale. My only complaint on the Christian Bale stuff is I feel like they sort of told 3 stories that, basically Batman was out for 7 years. And so it's like, to me, I wanted to believe that, oh, well, in between movies, Batman was fighting crime and stuff. And they really didn't give you much of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
One sort of starts with the, so it's almost like Batman just basically had these 3 epic encounters and that was it.
Right.
Versus, where I'd like a more universe where I could believe that, in between the first film and the second film, he did this and he did this and he fought this guy. And they sort of did that. They had a DVD release. I think it was called Gotham. But it was basically, it was supposed to be set in the Nolan verse, but it was 3 different animated short films with 3 different animation styles.
Okay.
So Christian Bale didn't voice him, but it was supposed to be Christian Bale's version of Batman. One was done very anime style, and just I think they did a Deadshot story and a couple other,
so kind of like the Animatrix that they came out with, where it was
okay,
yeah,
sort of set in between, between 1 and 2,
right.
But just kind of loosely based Batman Year One kind of stuff.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, it might have been called Year One. Actually, I think about it. It was all right. Again, like I said, for me, when you're going live action, like I said, Batfleck for me was just the body, the look, the appearance, the gruffness to him, the motivation. It was just perfect for me.
Okay.
And obviously Ben Affleck's a charming guy, so you're easily able to see him turn that charm on when he's trying to be, dawdling Bruce Wayne, womanizer, all that good stuff, right?
He's believable as Bruce Wayne, definitely. Yeah.
And even like in those, few moments of levity that they do have, where he's like, "I bought the bank." It's just like, yes, that's exactly what Bruce Wayne would do. He's like, this problem's easy to solve. I'll just buy the bank. I'll own the assets of the bank.
Yeah.
There's so many great, and of course the warehouse fight scene.
Oh, okay.
The best Batman fight scene ever, hands down. I mean, it's just, you can't beat what he did in that scene. It's just impossible. But of course, some of that borrowed heavily from Dark Knight and some other things where he comes through the wall and stuff like that, or from Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
But it's just such an amazing version of that story. Batfleck's going to always be my number 1.
Okay.
I'm kind of, so this is kind of a weird thing. It's hard for me not to put Adam West in my top 3. And it's only because, like I said, so much of my introduction was through that character.
Right.
That it made me love Batman as a kid. It was the perfect Batman for me as a kid.
Yeah.
But it's, again, doesn't hold water to what we've seen since then. But but Bale would probably be my actual number 2, just kind of like your number 1. I'm torn because I loved Bale from American Psycho.
Oh yes, love that movie.
For years, I loved Christian Bale. I said, "Oh, this guy's got star written all over him. Why are they not putting him in more than that?" Yeah. Not only that, though, when I was a little kid, I used to love, and I would go around singing that Newsies soundtrack.
Huey Lewis,
Christian. No.
Oh wait,
the Disney musical Newsies.
I don't know.
Young Christian Bale.
Okay.
It's a Broadway musical, but they turned into a musical movie.
Okay.
It's young Christian Bale, and it's about the newsboy strike of 1900, and they go on strike against William Randolph Hearst, and they won't carry the papers, and it's until they put they doubled the cost for the newsboys, that were peddling the extra, read all about it, and they said, so you put the price back, nobody in this town will sell a newspaper on the streets, and so it turns into this big thing, but it's a musical.
Okay.
That was where the first time I saw Christian Bale.
Okay. Well, you said Newsies, and I thought Huey Lewis and the News. Because that's the song that "Hip to Be Square" is what's playing. Square. Yeah, it is what's playing during American Psycho.
Do yourself a favor. Google, YouTube, Huey Lewis, American Psycho, Weird Al.
Okay.
Huey Lewis does a knockoff of that scene where he kills Jared Leto. Only he kills Weird Al, and it's like the whole time he puts on the movie American Psychos, and he does everything that Christian Bale does, talking about Huey Lewis's music. It's Huey Lewis talking about Christian Bale's acting. A lot of people think Christian Bale, blah blah, but I think he really peaked in the, blah blah. Which is one of his best. And he's putting on the raincoat, and Weird Al's not watching, and he ends up hitting Weird Al with the axe or whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
But he's like the whole time he's like, Al, turn around. He jams the axe in his head, just like Christian Bale does. It's a great scene.
Do you listen to metal?
Lewis. I mean, no.
Okay. Well, me and my son both have a favorite song, and it's called "Hip Be Scared," and it's a song by Ice Nine Kills that they made about American Psycho, and it's such a cool one. So whenever you said that, that's one of my favorites. So.
Well, see, and then he had another one that came out shortly thereafter. It was very Matrixy. This was before Batman, and it was called, oh my gosh, the name's escaping me right now. Equilibrium, yes, thank you.
Yeah,
I kept wanting to say Virtuosity, but I'm like, no, that was Denzel. Equilibrium. Yeah, that was such a good movie. And when I saw that, I was like, somebody's got to cast this guy as Batman. And so in my mind, I'd already fan casted him as Batman.
Yeah,
and then it was years later that he actually got the role of Batman.
Right.
And so like that's wild to me that now as far as actors that almost played Batman, who the original choice was for Batman in 1989?
Who was it?
Bill Murray.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
that would have been,
because you got to remember.
Been weird.
Everybody was still thinking of Batman as Adam West.
Okay,
goofy, funny comedy.
Yeah,
and so,
oh man, that would have been
They were, and so when they cast Michael Keaton, well, Michael Keaton was basically known for comedy.
Okay,
and so they thought they were going campy with it. So a lot of people are like, "Come on, this is stupid. This is gonna be stupid." But obviously it wasn't funny at all.
Right.
The other guy that they wanted to cast was Mel Gibson.
Oh, okay.
He was one they were really wanting to cast. Before they ended up before Tim Burton came on and said, "No, this is who I want."
Okay.
Willem Dafoe was another one they were going to cast.
Wow.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, that would have been really interesting.
But do you know who the original choice for Joker was going to be?
No, I don't.
It is John Lithgow.
Oh, okay. That would have been interesting to see, because
that would have been, wouldn't it?
That dude can act, man.
And you could see him doing that.
I can.
You could see him doing that,
especially after Trinity Killer.
Yeah. He would have been an interesting one. And then of course, the other Alec Baldwin, I think, was one time they were they were kind of casting him in everything in the late 80s. He was sort of the it guy in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But then before they cast Ben Affleck, who the number one candidate the studio wanted for in the Snyderverse was going to be.
Who was it?
And he went on to play several superhero roles. Josh Brolin.
Oh, okay. Josh Brolin as
in Thanos.
Yeah.
Jonah Hex.
Yeah. Cable.
What was he in Deadpool? Cable. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was almost also Batman.
Wow.
In fact, that's who the studio really wanted, and they've had to fight. Snyder fought for Ben Affleck.
That was definitely a better choice. Affleck was. I mean, it would have been interesting, but Affleck's definitely a better choice.
But you could see where Brolin would have made that version of Batman, as far as grizzled and older, and
right.
He kind of had that thicker build.
Yep.
That you picture how he played Cable. Cable was kind of you'd see him as a Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. You could.
Of course, Henry Cavill was before he was cast as Superman, was actually when the studio was looking to do Batman a few years before that, they'd actually looked at Cavill as well.
That might have been okay.
Jake Gyllenhaal was another one. Pierce Brosnan back in the 80s was one they were looking at. So go down a list here. Now I'm looking at Kurt Russell. I'm guessing that would have been 80s.
Really, Kurt Russell? Okay.
Yeah. Well, you could see, 80s Point Break.
Yeah.
He was.
Okay.
Remember that they were developing Batman for a while in the 80s. So it went through a lot of. But the more interesting to me though is George Miller's Justice League. So they almost made this movie, and you can actually find images and stuff where they started doing cast. They'd already cast the movie, and they were going to make this movie. I want to say it was in 2008-ish. And George Miller, so Mad Max. So do you know who he had cast as Batman?
No.
Armie Hammer. Went on to play the Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
And of course, he was the Winklevoss twins in the Facebook movie. And Superman was going to be DJ Catrono. And do you know where you've seen him? He played another superhero.
He has? Okay. I can't place him at the moment.
He's one of the Shazam kids, the grown-up versions.
Oh, okay.
So if you go look at it, he actually was the
whenever they get their power and they
whenever they say Shazam, he's one of the ones that he turns into.
Okay.
Let's see.
Did you see the new one of that, by the way?
No, I didn't.
I haven't either. It's on Max. I'll probably watch it eventually, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, I liked the first one, but then I heard some things about the second one. And I was like, I'll wait till video on that. That doesn't really inspire me.
I like Zachary Levi though.
Yeah, he's a really good actor.
Oh yeah.
He's definitely one of my I saw him in that Kurt Warner movie. I don't say Kurt Russell, Kurt Warner movie.
Oh yeah, that
Underdog.
just came out. Yeah.
So good. But you can imagine. You remember how good that Mad Max was. Imagine that director making a Justice League movie. That would have been. I feel like I really wanted to see that. And if there's an alternate universe out there where we actually get to see that, because that was going to be Maxwell Lord, and there was going to be all these. There's going to be so much. Anton Yelchin too was going to play the Flash. Of course, he played Chekhov in the Star Trek reboot, and then died. Very bizarre death too, right? That was that one. He got crushed by his own car.
Yeah.
And that way he was going to play the kid version, Wally West, and I think Adam Brody was going to play Barry Allen version. So anyways, an Armie Hammer Batman. That would have been interesting. I can totally see it. See it. He looks like Batman. He's got the jaw. He's got the, so that's one of those what could have been. Of course, we even covered like some of the TV Batman versions that we've seen.
Right.
Like Titans. They had the guy from Game of Thrones, right? Played Bruce Wayne. What's his name? I can't think of the guy's name. Older British actor.
Yeah.
A million times over, I could have told you who it was. Now I couldn't. God, that was such a good series. Right up till the end.
You talking about Game of Thrones?
He played Jorah Mormont.
Oh yeah, okay, Jack Gleason.
He played Bruce Wayne in the Titans, which is real weird because he's like really old to be playing Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
I don't know if I buy this. I didn't. I know there's a couple versions.
Who was the one that they had play in the Infinite Crisis on Infinite Earths? They had somebody, and it was like a broken
Conroy.
Was it Conroy that played that?
It was Conroy. Yeah.
Okay.
Kevin Conroy played the live action, which sounds so cool until you saw what they did with Batman. You're like,
right,
this is terrible. I hate.
They made him a bitter old man. That.
Yeah. Well, and not even like just in a whiny way.
Right.
Not even like I think every time they've touched Batman on TV, it's just not been. outside of animated, obviously. It's just not been very good.
And that's the one thing that I did like about Smallville, that they didn't try to bring in Batman on that.
Yeah, I think they couldn't either. I think there was a licensing deal where, because the tricky part about all that stuff is, you think about including a character or whatever, like, oh, they should throw this character in or that character in.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is every time you include a character, somebody came up with that character,
right?
And they have to get paid.
Yep.
So it was one of those. I remember reading that about Star Trek. So when they first did Star Trek Voyager, the character Tom Paris, he was supposed to be this young hotshot Federation guy, and he did something, so he was in a Federation prison, and they ended up because he had worked with this, so he ends up getting on this mission. Of course, if you know anything about Voyager, basically what happens is they get stuck 75 years away from Earth, and so this guy, they can't just leave him in the brig, so they reinstate him into Starfleet, because they need as many crew members as they can. Whatever. But that character, that same actor, had played almost the exact same character on an episode of The Next Generation.
Okay.
Where he had played, he was one of like 3 cadets in the academy, along with Wesley Crusher, who had done something, and they were covering it up because they'd done some risky flight thing, and somebody gotten killed, and so they were all trying to cover it up, and so they all got in trouble. But Wesley told the truth, but so this guy ends up going to a Federation prison, and so it was supposed to be that character. But when they tried to bring him in, they basically said, well, the guy who wrote this episode, you'll literally have to pay him like 7% residuals for every episode his character appears in.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, why don't we just write a new character? We don't have to pay. And so, so sometimes when they don't bring in characters, people are like, why didn't they could have included so-and-so. Well, the problem is, I don't know about some of these older characters where they have older contracts with these comic book writers where maybe they have to get paid on that.
Right.
I don't know if you can bring in every character.
It gets expensive, it sounds like. Yeah.
For sure. No, like I said, it would be interesting to see. I think the future of Batman will eventually be I don't have a lot of faith in the new James Gunn universe. And it's not me being judgmental of James Gunn. He's fine. Guardians of the Galaxy was fine. But even if you just look at Suicide Squad, well, he came in and did that, and it didn't do very great.
But we did get Peacemaker.
Yeah, it was great, and that was good.
Yeah.
But the problem is, like I said, is the studio the studio wants Marvel numbers, and you're not.
Right.
I just don't think you're going to get that.
No, you're not.
And so I think the future of DC is going to be more based on like a sort of a Netflix style. Let's just release them straight through our streaming platform and not worry about theater release.
Yeah.
Where we can have a little more forgiveness and not worry about it, not spend as much money in the promotion and things like that. So again, I think a lot of if Pattinson's second Batman doesn't do great.
Yep.
I think that's it for that universe for a long time. They're gonna have to shelf it for a while.
Yeah.
We'll see. Like I said, I wish nothing but the best for it, but I think, like I said, the future of Batman is probably going to be more TV and straight to streaming service than it is going to be for live action, I think.
Right.
Jensen Ackles would be great if he gets it, but we'll see.
We'll see. They've always done better, I think, at animated stuff anyways. I've always really enjoyed their animated stuff compared to Marvel's animated stuff. Never has really grabbed.
Oh yeah, Heads and Tails better for that. I've tried to watch a lot of the Marvel animated stuff, and I couldn't get into it. I tried. But the problem is now they've gotten to a point where they've just been telling the same stories over and over again in the animated universe.
Right.
And I just don't know if I want to see another Justice League versus Darkseid. It's just.
They try to do the comic book, but then they give it's not even a full version of it. So they cut out a lot of the good parts of the story, because they do it for one movie, when they could break it down into maybe 3 movies or something like that and cover more of the story that's in there.
Well, they did that with remember the Death of Superman. They split up into 2 movies. Yeah. And they did a good job on that. I enjoyed it. But again, it's kind of one of those, you have to change something.
Right.
when you do it, because you can't just do the exact same story from the comics, or else people will go, well, we've already seen this.
Yeah.
And then once you change something, everybody gets mad at you for changing something. Because I know they tried to update.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tried to update that. You're like, everyone's like, no, you should have left it set in the 90s, did it exactly like it is on the. They're like, again, they're just like, there's too many characters, too much of this. We drew that out over months and months and months. We can't include all that. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, like I said, I did like Young Justice when they first started Young Justice.
That was good. Yeah.
The second season of that, or the third season, whatever it was that came out years later, was awful. Just awful. Like
so
complete. Yeah. Go ahead.
I fell off, after watching, I think the first season. I forgot about it really. So
First
I never
two seasons
watched.
Were great.
Okay. I only watched season 1, and I just never went back to it. It was one of those shows that I enjoyed.
I think it was for 2 seasons. I think it was 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, and then like we had to wait forever for the third season, and they kind of did basically they jumped ahead in time, and they brought in new characters or whatever, to be the new Young Justice or whatever,
right?
With some of the older characters, and you see they're all fractured and blah blah blah. But it was just, you could tell somebody in the studio was super PC, and they're making all these PC notes, and they're like, to the point, and I get that, like, that's going to be part of Hollywood from now on, and right. It's worked its way into comics and movies and stuff. And I get it. You got to have a representation and everything. Yeah. The problem with it was, and I'm trying not to get myself canceled by saying anything controversial here. Problem was it was so self-aware of it, how PC they were trying to be, that it went into full virtue signal mode.
Right.
For example, there's this character who was in there called Halo. Mm-hmm. Well, if you know anything about Halo's origins, which actually I actually, one of the first series I got into when I was a little kid reading for Batman comics was Batman and the Outsiders. Okay. So for a brief year, Batman breaks apart from the Justice League and runs his own little version of the Justice League with all these up and coming heroes called the Outsiders. Mm-hmm. Black Lightning was in them. Katana, and Halo, and Geoforce, and Metamorpho. Yeah. And anyways, Halo was this alien that, looked like a little Barbie doll. She's a little blonde haired, blue eyed, and kind of smiley and just, but had like almost amnesia, didn't know where she came from or what, how she got these powers. Right. And anyway, so they introduced her, only they decided to make her Muslim. Okay. But the problem is she doesn't know what Muslim means. Like, she's got amnesia. Right. So she's doing all these Muslim things, wearing the headdress, but doesn't, she doesn't have a religion. Yeah. So she's not, so they're just doing this for the sake of having somebody wearing the headdress, or, and saying the Muslim things, but she doesn't believe in the Quran or Allah or, And so it's like, well, why are you doing this?
That would almost seem more insulting to me if I were somebody who was looking for representation. If somebody was using that, I would find that insulting almost.
Yeah, and on top of that, then like they go, well, as a young woman, she goes, well, let me correct you. I chose this form, but I don't know if I'm actually male or female. Oh, good point. You're right. And it's just like, what? Yeah. Like, then why did you choose it? Right. Yeah. Like, again, it was just one of those, like, they were kind of, we got to have a character that does this. We got to have a character that does this. But like, okay, we'll actually have a character who's Muslim. Don't just, and she's going to dress like a Muslim. Yeah. Then they kind of took, they were sort of wedging gay characters and stuff in without it having really anything to do with the story. They just wanted to show, look, we got one. Yeah. And, to me, that's always more distracting than helpful. Right. And they sort of did a lot, I didn't finish Supergirl.
I didn't either. Whenever they made it to where they're like, oh, our weapons are, non-lethal and all that stuff. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm done. It just didn't make sense.
Yeah. I think the whole world was done at that point. I always followed the ratings even when I didn't watch the show, just to see how it was doing. Right. And that was one of those ones. So if you know anything about I know we've been going a long time here, and if you got to cut me off, let me know. But CW was basically, if you read how CW is set up, it's owned by a couple of studios, CBS, and I think Viacom, MTV essentially, one of those. And so what they do is they're all trying to get content made. So they need to have a studio to have a content made. The idea is for on the content they're making is not for the first run to make any money, but for them to be able to build up their library. So when somebody comes to CBS and says, we'd like to stream some of your shows, they can offer them, okay, we'll give you a package of 25 shows here that you can have for exclusive streaming rights to.
Yep.
So those 25 shows, to get enough episodes to make the content worth anything, you've got to make at least 100 episodes, about 3 or 4 seasons. And so CW was set up as we're all going to split the cost of running the studio and all lose money on these projects, but hopefully, have this long-term, so all these CW shows were never designed to make money in the first run.
Okay.
But you were hoping that they could make a little bit of money.
Right.
And they were getting so bad ratings that they had to ditch them, Batwoman, Black Lightning, all those, they just said, look, we're not making anything off this. And it's costing us too much. It's going to take us too long to make our money back.
Right. Right.
And so that's why a lot of those got cut. The more interesting one is the Batgirl movie that got cut. Did you follow any of that drama?
A little bit, but not really. I know that they had a lead character picked out and everything like that. And
no, they filmed the entire movie.
Did they film the? Oh, okay, I didn't know that
the entire movie was shot.
Oh wow. Okay.
It was test screened, and it's still missing. There was a couple okay, and we haven't finished the CGI for this explosion or what.
Right.
So there was a few moments that weren't finished, but for the most part, they'd screened it for the studio, and the studio heads got together and said, this is so bad that if we release this, not only will it not make money, it will turn people off to any other movies we make.
Right.
And this franchise of Batgirl will never be able to make money off of again.
Right.
Because it was so bad. Brendan Fraser was Firefly.
Okay.
They had Batgirl, and her sidekick and her best friend was a trans character.
That's right. I remember Brandon Fraser was in that now. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And Michael Keaton was in it.
Yep.
Playing Batman.
Yep.
So it was supposed to be tied to that Flash universe. Where Michael Keaton comes back somehow.
Okay.
And there was other characters, I'm sure, too. But it was so bad, they said at the test screenings, that the studio said, look, we've spent whatever, 70 million, whatever, already on this thing.
Right.
If we go to release it, we have to spend another 30 to 40 million on promoting it.
Yeah.
Commercials and airtime and creating toys and licensing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We're better off not releasing it, writing off our loss. And so as long as they never let this film see the light of day, they can write it off as a loss. If they ever release it in any platform whatsoever, they'll have to go back and pay the taxes on it.
Oh, wow.
So it's very similar to, you remember the Fantastic Four movie of the early 90s?
The early 90s? No,
Yes.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, you can go find it on YouTube. There's an entire Fantastic Four movie that was made in 1991.
Oh, whoa.
And
okay.
It was so bad that it never saw the light of day. But, some people had gotten copies of it, and it, had made its way through the years. You could go to Comic-Cons.
Yeah.
And, Trek Expos, things like that, and find, you could buy bootleg copies of it.
Yeah.
Now it's on YouTube. You can watch it. But that one was made very similar. Entire movie finished and never released. And the reason was the studio had a deal. It's very similar to kind of what Warren Beatty has with the Dick Tracy series rights. The studio had the right, but they have to make a movie every so many years or the rights would go back to Marvel.
Oh, okay.
And they had reached their point where they had to make a movie. It's the same thing with Sony. They have to release a Spider-Man movie every so many years or the rights go back to Marvel.
Oh, okay.
That's why they didn't waste any time between Garfield and Maguire and
right.
And the next one. You just see a new Spider-Man every couple of years.
Yeah.
Because they have to keep those movies churning out or they'll lose the rights to them. Well, this one was the same thing. It was they had to release, so they made an entire Fantastic Four movie just to prove they had made one, but they never released it because it would have cost them money to release it.
Wow.
So it's a very bootleg budget movie. The effects are terrible. The costumes aren't very good. but this whole movie that's out there, you can go find it. It's, I mean, I've watched it. It's a little weird.
I'll have to look that up. Yeah,
it's not terrible. I mean, it's not good, but it's not terrible. Very similar thing. Yeah, Dick Tracy, same thing. When Warren Beatty made the Dick Tracy movie, he owned the rights from the comics to make Dick Tracy movies, but it was kind of one of those deals. He had to make a Dick Tracy movie every so many years, or it would revert back.
I got you.
So his loophole was he appeared as Dick Tracy on the inside the actor's studio, wearing the hat and the thing, and did an interview.
Right.
And the court ruled that was enough to count. As making some, so it's one of those weird, like, if you don't make a movie, the rights go back to Marvel.
Okay.
Very bizarre. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a Batman, of course. Not Batman really, but Batman.
No, it's good here. Yeah. No, I like it. This is all interesting stuff, man. I didn't know any of that. I'm gonna have to look that up because I want to watch that now. Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's more interesting to be if we ever see the Batgirl movie in some form released, and could that have been the last time we see Michael Keaton as Batman? Will they release maybe just the scene of Michael Keaton just so we can see it? I don't know. That's one because with the Flash not doing well, I don't know that they're going to make any more Michael Keaton Batmans. Right. That was the talk of him coming back as maybe, but. Man, going back to it, I think my other problem with that is I'm a Grant Gustin person. I watched him for so many years playing the Flash that's my Flash, man. I get it. Problem is that show got terrible too. Towards the end, I stopped watching it towards the end. They had pretty much lightning lightsabers at the end of that show. I'm like, really? What's going on here? Come on now. I dipped out about season 3. Okay. Maybe 4, I don't know. So I came back and watched the very last episode with no context. Okay. And I was just like, what is this? There's way too many speedsters. There's way too many characters. I don't know what CW's obsession is with that. It's like, all right, we've got to keep adding a new character every 5 minutes, and then it's the same formula over and over and over. I mean, you saw with the Arrow, and all those. It's just like season 1 of Arrow was so good. I think for me the first 4 seasons are good of Arrow. Season 1 and 2 are pretty good, but like I said, as they kept adding more heroes to the team, it just started getting like there's not enough screen time for everybody, so everybody's just has the exact same story in every episode. Like, I show up and I do this, and then I show up and I do, and it's just like, and then at the last second, blonde girl will hack the system. It's just like, it wasn't interesting anymore after a while. It's just like, okay. I like the guy that plays Damien Dark on that show. He plays in Band of Brothers also. I can't. Was that on? You're talking about Neil McDonough. Yes. Yeah. I like Neil McDonough. He's awesome. He's good in just about everything you see him in. Yeah, he's a very outspoken actor too. He'll talk bad about Hollywood. Will he? Yeah. He, in fact, he's got himself blackballed a little bit, I think, because he is willing to call out some of Hollywood's issues. But he was in Yellowstone too more recently. Somebody needs to be willing to call them out on their issues. So anyways, we won't get into that. That's 100%. We'll be on here for another 2 hours if we do that. Other cameo from Flash, Elvis. What? Huh? The kid who plays Elvis in the new. Okay. I know. I was like, Elvis. What? I forgot there was a new movie that came out about Elvis recently. Yeah. Oh, you didn't see it? No, I didn't. And that's sad because I'm from Memphis, and you'd think that I'd be like, oh yeah, Elvis, but no, I didn't watch it. My other obsession, growing up, was Elvis, Batman, and Elvis. All right. And to this day, I'm still Batman and Elvis fan. I wear a lot of Elvis shirts, Elvis sunglasses. Yeah. But he played Thea's boyfriend in an episode. A DJ. He was like a DJ at the nightclub. Oh, okay. And so he was was blonde at the time, so he didn't really look like Elvis at all. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that kid did such a good job playing Elvis. He completely immersed himself into the character, into being Elvis,
Yeah.
to the point that they said he has permanently altered his speech.
Really?
He can't talk like he used to talk. He can only talk like Elvis now.
Wow.
Because he spent 2 years just, becoming Elvis.
Yeah.
Fully immersed himself. And
That's
so now when you hear
insane.
him talk, he's like, yeah, he goes, it's like if you move from, let's say, Canada to Texas, and like after a while you start developing a Texas accent or something.
Right.
He goes, it's kind of like that. Like I worked so hard at changing the way I talked that like my brain, this is the default setting now.
Right.
He goes,
he rewired
I don't
himself.
know how to get it. Yeah, it's like I don't know how to get it back. Like even if I go home, like I can't like get my old accent back. He goes, I've changed my. It's wild, and he sounds exactly like Elvis.
Yeah,
he sings like him. He did a lot of the singing in the movie.
Huh.
So it's pretty amazing. Yeah, anyways, he was originally in the Flash as well, CW's Flash.
Wow.
So my Flash was John Wesley Shipp, because remember I'm a little bit older than you,
just a little bit. Yeah, not much.
So my early, so we got Batman in '89. Well, we got Flash in 1990. A live action Flash, and there was only one season.
Yep.
But it was so good, and I loved it. As a kid, I would watch it every Thursday on CBS, 7:00. I still remember it. Yeah, like I was obsessed with it. It was so good, and it was like it was kind of it was very grown up for a superhero show.
Right.
They didn't go corny with it.
Yeah.
Which again, the biggest corny thing they had on there was Mark Hamill playing the Trickster.
Oh, okay.
Which he revived when he did the same character on Grant Gustin's.
Yeah.
He came back and did the Trickster.
Oh, that's really cool.
But he was young Mark Hamill,
right?
Still Luke Skywalker Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
When he was on that one. So yeah, that was for me. Again, we were superhero deprived back then. We didn't have a lot. It wasn't now like the studios were cranking out superhero movies every 5 seconds. You didn't have that. People forget. Like there wasn't much in the early throughout the 90s. Because after Schumacher killed Batman with that terrible Batman and Robin, which I know we've avoided talking about this whole time.
The Clooney,
the Clooney Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Batman
just
with
so bad.
Rubber nipples.
Nipples. Well, and and to me that's a big example of like people who don't understand Batman making Batman movies. It doesn't work out.
Exactly.
Like Schumacher didn't understand Batman.
No.
He just understood popcorn and like let's just make it big tentpole summer movie. And not care about the character.
Yeah.
And Batman has to be Batman has to be your protagonist. Just like in a wrestling match, the babyface has to be the storyteller.
Right.
You have to be able to see and when you have too many heels on the screen, too many villains that are overshadowing. Yeah. There's a problem with The Rock. Why The Rock didn't always make a very good heel.
Right.
Because he would bury the faces.
Yep.
He would go out there and cut those promos, and everybody thought the promos were the greatest thing ever. Well, the problem was now I want to see this guy win. I don't want to see the other guy win.
Yeah.
This guy's way cooler, right? Well, that's the problem I think with the Schumacher Batmans was you just had Batman got buried. He wasn't the star of the movies.
No.
That one did so bad that, like I said, they canceled because there was supposed to be a third Batman was supposed to be a Scarecrow story.
Okay.
Yeah, and they obviously they shelved it all, but that was going to be the next one. It was going to be and Schumacher for years said he wanted to make another Batman movie to redeem himself.
And
he
didn't trust him to do it.
Well, I think nobody wanted to go back to that.
Right. Yeah. I'm happy with the Scarecrow that we got though.
We got Chris O'Donnell as Robin, which was good Robin.
Right. Yeah. No.
But who was supposed to play Robin in the very first Batman movie?
Who?
There's a whole. You can find the script online. There's a whole script of the first draft of the script that has Robin in it. And it's supposed to be the Joker. Basically, there's a fight that takes place at the circus, and the kids' parents get killed as the acrobats, and Batman has this moment where he's like talking to the kid and blah blah blah, and then like they're supposed to set up Robin, and he got paid for the role for 2 movies. Actually, it might have been 3 movies. Marlon Wayans.
Really?
Yeah, and to this day, he is credited in every version of both of Tim Burton's movies as Robin. He gets a residual check every time the movie airs. So he already had signed his contracts, but they basically said at the last minute, like, this movie's already too much. We don't have time to get into a new story as well.
Yeah.
And so they had to cut him out. He got paid to play Robin in both movies.
I would have liked to seen that.
It's interesting because that would have been the first. Here's what I kind of wonder: if you had race swapped Robin back then, it still gets it's still controversial when you race swap any character. We just saw it with the Mermaid one.
Yeah.
How would people have reacted in 1989 to a race swap like that? Would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the only race swap in that movie. Of course, remember who played Harvey Dent? Billy D. Williams, Lando.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah.
He was supposed to be Two-Face in the third movie, but when Tim Burton left, Schumacher just said, I kind of want to go a different direction, because obviously Billy D. Williams was much bigger in 1989 than he was by 1995.
Right. Yeah.
But, he wasn't as big a star by any means, so they ultimately went with somebody else, Tommy Lee Jones. But so that would have been another interesting Tim Burton thing to do, to change, dramatically change two characters like that would have been interesting.
So going back to O'Connell there for a second, I thought about this the other day because I knew we were going to be doing this episode. He made laundry look cool.
It was a cool scene.
As a kid, I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I wish it was like that." So,
I mean, if you think about the Robin character, it's such a, for me, it's not a great character to begin with. Again, it was originally written as, a campy thing. Hey, we want to see a kid doing these adventures with Batman, so that way the kids will buy the comics because they can see themselves as being there with Batman.
Yeah,
they'll want to be Robin. And originally, Robin was a very popular character.
Yeah.
But then you really work into the concept of like, wait, this grown man is bringing a child with him to fight dangerous and deadly gangsters? Like, no, that's a terrible idea. Like, that makes Batman look like the worst dude ever. So there's so many, and we could get it. We could spend an hour talking about Robin. Because there's so many versions of Robin and so many different ways they've taken the character and stuff like that. O'Donnell was pretty vanilla, obviously he was playing more of like a 19-year-old Robin, not a kid Robin.
Right.
And so he did the best with what he could do there.
Yeah.
Of course, Alicia Silverstone in the next one, that was just that was again what made her Alfred's granddaughter.
Yeah. No,
something.
It was his niece.
It's like his niece. Yeah, because I don't think he has kids.
No.
But the original version of it was supposed to be, and you can see the test shots where she wore a full head mask like Batman's.
Yeah.
And somebody at the studio goes, "No, it's Alicia Silverstone. She's beautiful. Like, we don't cover her face up. Like, but she's a masked hero. She has." So they gave her like the tiniest domino mask in the world that clearly,
Yeah.
You would have no problem recognizing that is clearly Alicia Silverstone.
Right. Yeah.
But all the characters that got released and all the publicity stills that got released, like from the action figures and stuff, she has the full head mask on because those are made early in the process. They basically show the toy makers, the pre-movie drawings, and that's what they base all the characters off of.
Yeah.
So that change wasn't made till late. So if you buy the Batman and Robin character of Batgirl, it is a full head mask, doesn't look like her from the movie at all.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and Batgirl is another interesting character too. You get off on the different versions of her that have been in the comics.
Right. Yeah.
And again, I get it. If you're writing this story about Batman, for me, like I said, I like me personally, I like my Batman working solo for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Using some of his detective skills, some of his gadgets, but
a little bit of everything there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want the antagonist to be, up to the level of Batman, or the situation that Batman has to overcome has to be daunting task. You're gonna have to find a very clever way to defeat these odds.
Yeah.
And so I don't like a lot of extra characters, but I get it. You start writing the same thing over and over and over again. You've got to add new characters just so you can change the stories up.
Yeah.
Let's add a Batgirl. Let's add a Robin. Let's add a second Robin. Let's add, we'll make this Robin
Red
grow up to
Hood.
be a different character.
Yeah.
We'll have one Robin die and then come back from the dead.
Yeah.
The Butler, so you got to add all these characters, and eventually, like I said, after a while, it becomes like a CW show. It's like, can we just get back to the, telling the story about the Green Arrow? I don't need to know his 18 sidekicks' names and their backstories, but I get it, if you have to write them. That's why sometimes superheroes make better movies than TV shows.
Right.
And sometimes it's the other way around. I've seen some movies where you're like, gosh, they barely got into the story. There's so much more here, but it's only 2 hours. We have to get it all in one.
Right.
It's like you talk about The Watchmen being such a good movie.
Did you watch the show?
I did. Very interesting show.
It was.
Had ties to Tulsa.
Yep.
This whole thing, I believe, was set in Tulsa, right?
It was.
Which it's funny because living in Tulsa.
Yeah.
I could tell they were not in Tulsa.
No.
But they dived into the background of it was the Tulsa race riots.
Right.
I'm sorry. I know it's called the race massacre now. Growing up, they always called it the race riots.
Okay.
So, excuse me. I was not trying to offend anybody by saying race riots, but again, growing up, they always just called it the Tulsa race riots. And then it was only until a few years ago they started referring to more as the Tulsa race massacre.
Yeah.
Which is, like I said, get it out. I liked some of what they did with it. I didn't love a lot of what they did with it.
Yeah.
I would have watched a second season though.
Oh, definitely.
A second season, but it was it was, put it this way, Ozymandias was good. Jeremy Irons. I really enjoyed him. Some of the liberties they took with some of the characters, I was like, yeah. I won't spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it since it's only a few years ago. But they did some interesting things with Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But no, it was interesting. And then to see what's his name from Miami Vice.
Oh yeah.
Don Johnson, right?
Yes. Don Johnson from Nash Bridges.
Yeah. Well, okay.
That's where I know him from.
I guess, I know him as Sonny Crockett from Miami Vice. But,
I know him from Nash Bridges. So.
I got you. Yeah. But yeah, he was good in that, I thought. Played a very believable character, the racist cop, sort of.
He does a good job playing the racist on there.
Yeah.
And Django.
Is that a compliment? I don't know. You play a very convincing racist, sir.
Yeah.
No, I don't know that I'd want to be known as.
No. All right,
man. Like I said, getting back and all that, just going back to summing up our Batman thing here.
Yeah.
Again, the appeal of Batman is always that he's so reality based.
Right.
And the best Batman stories are always going to be kind of not aliens, not, super mechanism stuff, Iron Man suits and all that good stuff. It's always going to be just a solo dude, using a combination. We all want to believe that, like I said, we could be this character, this I could train hard enough to be a great fighter, or, be really smart at forensics and all these things that Batman does.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is be driven by this massive trauma in your life is what he is. And like I said, I think that's the appeal of it, because it's not sci-fi. It's reality based, as opposed to every other superhero. You had to have a super serum or be bit by a radioactive something or other. And I'm just telling you right now, you go get bit by a radioactive spider, you're probably going to get a tumor. That's all you're going to do. You're not going to get superpowers. You go get I fell into a toxic batch of chemicals.
Yeah.
No, that's just going to kill you. You probably get lymphoma or something. You're dead. You're not going to get superpowers. But Batman, he doesn't have superpowers.
Right.
He's still out there being the bravest hero, the most respected hero, which is why, like I said, I think what always is going to be the lingering thing that appeals about Batman.
Yeah. I agree. Batman's always going to be one because he's the most real, and the thing is he is surrounded by people who have superpowers, but yet they see him as the leader, when it comes to Justice League.
I think
one thing that I really like is there's pictures and it says, Wonder Woman can fly, Green Lantern can fly, Superman can fly, but they're all in the Batwing with him.
Yes.
So
yes. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And they know the mission is too valuable to not take Batman with you.
Exactly.
You need Batman. You have to have Batman there. And even if, like I said, we didn't even get into some of the Batman Beyond and stuff that they've done as well, which is an interesting look at where the future of Batman would have ended. One of the cool things about Christian Bale's Batman is Christopher Nolan said, if I tell a Batman story, I want to be able to tell the end of Batman. And so that's why he had that scene at the end where Batman dies.
Right.
But then we're left to wonder, did he really die? Is Alfred fantasizing about seeing him? Or is he actually seeing him at that table in the future?
Right.
We don't know.
Right.
But there was no end to Batman. That was the first time anybody actually told the end of Batman as a story. The ultimate, and did exactly what you'd expect. I will give my life to save these people. And Catwoman says, haven't you given them enough? Not everything. Not yet.
Yeah.
And that's, we all want to be that hero who would be willing to, if there was a robber in front of us and he was going to kill somebody, we would want to think we were brave enough to, risk our lives to save everybody, or to go into the fire and pull somebody out if we, if it was our family or a friend, or, we want to see ourselves as that hero, and Batman is that hero.
Right.
And so that's, I think I said, one of the things that's always going to appeal about him is he did everything Superman did, only without invincibility and super strength.
Yeah.
He fought the same bad guys and never hid from anybody.
Right. Yeah.
It's just one of those things that's always going to appeal. And they've tried to do similar heroes, and there's been a lot of Batman knockoffs throughout the years of different characters, but nobody's ever quite been just like Batman. That psychology that Batman has.
Well, there's so much a rich history. It's hard to try to compare anyone else to Batman because he is one of the originals, So it's going to take a lot of time for somebody to get to that point.
One of my things I was trying to stress today was just the looking at the trauma of Batman. How that trauma drove him, which I think is relatable to a lot of people, because everybody's got some level of trauma in their life, a traumatic moment, and you can relate to feeling helpless, to feeling like you couldn't do enough, or I could have done more to prepare. If only I, instead of having fun and doing this, if I'd been out there preparing for my future better, preparing, working those extra hours, or whatever it might have been, I'd be in a better place today. I could have done something. I could have, well, Batman's never going to make that mistake. He's going to, he's not going to have fun. He's going to spend every moment preparing for that worst case scenario, just in case it ever happens one day.
Yeah.
He's 10 steps ahead of everybody else.
Right.
Which is just, like I said, so cool. I mean, there's just so many cool elements of Batman that makes him Batman. I could talk for another 5 hours about it. I know you're going to have to end this podcast at some point.
Yeah. We're actually are coming up on a close with this and everything. But I did, like I said, I had one person who sent in a question. I did put a
let's
saying that I was going to have you on. We're going to talk about Batman. So this kind of pertains to you as a wrestler, though, and with you being a huge Batman fan and being a superhero fan in general, how does that relate to you whenever you play a face character in wrestling?
Well, it's kind of interesting because we have a term we use in wrestling called the vanilla baby face.
Mm-hmm.
So you think of vanilla ice cream, right?
Yep.
Well, it's just vanilla. It's very plain. It doesn't have the sprinkles. It doesn't have the caramel and the chocolates and all the stuff on it. It's not brightly colored. It's vanilla.
Right.
And it's fine. You like it, you taste it, but you can't help but see the more attractive sundae over there or whatever over here and think to yourself, that's got a better presentation to it. That's more interesting.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you still need vanilla. That's still the one that every ice cream shop's going to have, is always going to have vanilla. The chocolate side may not work on the machine, but vanilla side's going to work, right?
Right.
So we use that term vanilla as in kind of, when you're a bad guy, it's always more interesting and more fun. There's a lot more there to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But as a good guy, you have to follow these rules.
Yep.
You have to follow the rules.
Right.
Right. And so when I go out as a good guy in a match, I always tell my students, you're there for one thing. You believe that this is an athletic competition, just like a baseball game or a basketball game or whatever. And everybody's there being a good sportsman and you're there as a mission of goodwill and to entertain fans and to just show I've worked on my skills and I think my level is ready and I want to test my skills and my merit against yours.
Yeah.
Right. It's this very naive belief because we all know, well, the other guy's not going to do that. The fans know the other guy's not there for that, but the babyface has to go out there still believing that.
Right.
That this guy's out here and he's not going to cheat. He's not, we're both here for good intentions. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, with a superhero, they're kind of the same way, right? I want to find a way to solve this problem with, unless it's the Punisher or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I'm here to solve the problem, in the peaceful way. And you think of Superman saying, "Don't do it, Lex. Millions of people will die."
Right.
You can't blow up the West Coast and turn it into real estate,
Yeah.
or whatever the plot of Superman was, right?
Yeah.
But he has to be, millions of people will die. Don't make me have to do something bad here. And we as wrestling heroes, I was explaining to my guys, I'm a good guy, so I have to follow the rules, right? I can't throw a punch because punching isn't allowed in wrestling. But if he punches me first and he keeps punching me and breaking the rules, at some point the fans are going to say, Justin, it's not a wrestling match anymore. It's a fight. Fight back.
Right.
And I'll look to the crowd for that approval. And now I'm able to escalate to his level because I have to.
Yeah.
Right. I can't, if he's not going to fight fair, I have to fight fire with fire. And we do that as, so again, you can relate that as a babyface wrestler to being a superhero. But you still want to portray those best elements, right? The hope for humanity that every time I go out there, maybe this guy's going to follow the rules, maybe, right. And I'm going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, even if he's not going to do the right thing.
Right.
Yeah. And that, again, it's so boring because everyone's like, the bad guy's more fun, or the Rock's more fun when he's talking, but if you stick to the formula, it works.
Right.
It may not be right. Again, there's a reason vanilla is still the most popular ice cream there is, right? Vanilla works. Even if it's not the attractive sundae or whatever, it still works. So yeah, sometimes, again, right now I'm a heel right now. So I get to kind of do the opposite.
Right.
I get to go out there and manipulate the face and manipulate his emotions and use his willingness to do the right thing against him.
Right.
And again, like I said, any good protagonist has to face an obstacle that changes them and who they are, and they have to learn from their mistakes and get better. And that's what makes a story interesting. That's where the fans can see, So one of the things I always say is the worst thing you can do is give somebody a monster push sometimes when they first come into the business. Which is weird for me to say because I got a monster push when I came to this, but I didn't lose a match for like a year,
Yeah.
But what I mean is you become much less relatable when you're perfect, right? Nobody can really relate to Superman,
right?
But you can relate to a flawed character, and we want to see those flaws and I made it, I tried and I learned and I got better, right? I came back and people got mad at when Cody didn't win WrestleMania. But, what did he learn from that? He learned he's not there yet, but he's a work in progress. And if he does the right things and goes throughout these much harder battles like Lesnar and whoever else, right, he's going to come out in the end ready now. What he didn't have when the first time he faced Roman, he'll have this time.
Right.
Right. And that's sort of the story of a protagonist and an antagonist.
Yeah.
And if you do wrestling right, again, we're not doing moves, we're making moments.
Yep.
And then that's again, we've talked about our favorite Batman moments here. Only one of them was a fight scene. The rest of it were emotions that we had. Whether it was him holding the little girl's hand as she's dying, or the guys looking at the clones and saying, how could one human being endure so much trauma? Or Batman running into the smoke, not knowing what's on the other side of it. Right? It's this these moments we create that I could relate to that. Oh, I wonder what I would do. Would I be brave enough in that situation? How would I have handled that situation?
Yeah.
And that's good storytelling.
Right. Yeah. No, I like it, man. So one last thing before we get off of here and everything.
Sure.
So something happened today, actually, that I saw. And this is going back to wrestling and everything.
Okay.
I heard that one of the tag title belts was actually stolen.
I read that. Yeah. The UFC tag title was stolen somewhere in Glenpool, Oklahoma, they said.
I'm guessing it was just out of the car as they were, or what I thought I read is that it was in the
I
car
haven't
or something.
seen any details. I mean, I know they had new tag champs that night, so I don't know if the new champs took them home.
Yeah.
And or what happened, honestly. That's terrible. Yeah, and you hope that, wherever it ends up, somebody will return it. If it gets pawned or sold and somebody finds out where it should have been or where it came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People just need to do better.
Yeah. And, I mean,
it's
one of those things I always said is I would rather people not take the belts home with them.
Right.
Me personally.
Yeah.
Because you never know if that guy's going to come back. You could get mad at you and not come back, and now he's got your belt.
Alondra Blaze.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a true story. I was booking for another company. And this a few years back, about a couple of years ago, and one of our champions, he'd had a nice run, and it was time to move the belt to somebody else. And I had a guy that I was already lining up for the next push, and I was going to have him win. And I called the guy and said, "Hey, do you mind? You're gonna be here this month? Yeah, it'll be okay. Well, I'm gonna need you to drop the belt to so and so." And he goes, "Okay." I was actually wanting to come drop it to this guy instead. And it was a guy I was not pushing,
right?
The guy that we weren't going to be using as a big star, whatever. Yeah. And I get it. There was this guy's friend, and I was like, "Hey, yeah, I appreciate that, man, but we've already got a storyline, everything worked out for this other guy.
Yeah.
He's our next guy. We've already been building to this for months, but thank you, and we appreciate it."
Yeah.
So I said, "But you are going to be here?" "Oh yeah, I'll be there." Well, that weekend he went to another show in another Fed. And basically made a joke of our title and had it change hands in a trivia contest with a fan. And basically, and so luckily we got the belt back. I mean, I can tell you the names, but there's no reason to I'll tell you off the air.
Okay. Just
so we don't have much of heat going in.
Oh yeah, no, we're good. Wow.
These people are still very, very much involved in wrestling.
Okay.
It's just very bizarre. It's just like, why did you do that?
Right.
And they were mad at me, like, well, why wouldn't you, why would you not let this person that we gave the title to be the new champion? Do you not like this person? It was a kid who was training, but he was a kid who has some limitations.
Yeah.
And we like him. He's a great kid. He's actually has done some stuff in the ring, but certainly was not your decision to make the title change hands. And especially, it wasn't at our Fed. You didn't call me, and I'm the booker. You didn't call the Fed's owner. You just decided you were going to have the title change hands, which is very disrespectful.
Wow.
And so, that's another reason why I prefer not to send the belts home with anybody.
Right.
Because that stuff could happen. Or, somebody just gets in their bag and steals it from them because they take them off that night or something. Right. Or they pull a rib and the rib goes too far and now your title belt's missing. Right? And so, it's one of those deals. I wouldn't, I think Tim should probably just say, everybody leave your belts in the bag. But I get it too,
Well, hopefully they are able to take it home and
take some pictures with it. So,
hopefully they're able to find it.
Yeah, we really hope so. Is what it is. If it goes, hopefully, like I said, Tim will get a new one, and it'll cost money out of the coffers, but it's what it is.
Yeah,
I hate that.
Yeah, definitely.
What a bummer. I got a funny. You got quick time for one more story?
Sure. Yeah.
So, I was working for a Fed called OCW, Oklahoma Championship Wrestling. This is 2003, and the promoter had this idea. He's like, "Hey, here's what I'm gonna do. We got all these old belts, and they're not great. What we're gonna do is we're gonna raffle the belts off, and we're gonna use the money we make from the raffle to buy new belts, right?" So we're gonna, and so he announced this raffle, and we're all like, "I don't know." And our attendance is only like 100 fans. Like, even if every fan bought a $2 raffle ticket,
it's not gonna be enough.
Yeah, good belts gonna be several $100s,
right?
At least, this is back in 2003. I'm sure they're more exports now.
Oh yeah.
Well, of course, make $30 in raffle tickets, and the night of the raffle comes, and so we give away our belt, and I don't have a belt to wear anymore to the ring.
Oh no,
because we don't have a new belt. So luckily, I knew the fan that had won it, and so I had a title defense coming up the next week, and I was like, "Hey, can I borrow the belt and I'll give it back to you after the show?" So I had to do that a couple of times until eventually I went out and I bought a used belt online and painted it, and it looked trashy, but it was the best I could do. It was like I had to have a belt, and the promoter completely botched it on that one. And then he's like, after that, he's like, they didn't auction off any other belts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just mine that got given away basically to a fan.
Oh, no.
And I even had my mom buy like $20 worth of raffle tickets to, I was like, well, I know I bought more than anybody else, so I'm likely to win this thing.
Right.
And of course, the guy bought one raffle ticket somehow. He won.
That's usually the way it goes, man.
Yeah. Talking about missing titles, though. That's kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah.
What a great wrestling story. That's classic.
So is there anything else that maybe you want to bring up before I get you off?
Just as far as going back to wrestling real quick, I know if anybody's still listening after this really long podcast, sorry guys, we didn't mean to go this long. August, Extravaslams, August 5th, coming up, my next match. Taking on Scotty Too Hottie.
Yes.
That'll be a great one. That's a good matchup for me. A little bit older than me.
Mm-hmm.
Been around a long time, but we, very similar. He's a good baby face. I'm a good heel. This will be a fun match to work.
Yeah.
I was glad Tim gave that to me.
Yeah.
I love Tim so much. Tim does such a good job. He's got so much on his plate.
Right.
Trying to keep all these guys happy. And, I'm one of these guys. I'm a work in progress, Jared. I'm telling you, I used to get really hot when I didn't think things were going my way. When I thought Booker had soured on me or made me lose big matches, I hated it.
Yeah.
And I'm a work in progress because now, I learned, hey, you know what? A lot of people had to put me over for me to get to this spot. Sometimes I got to return that favor.
Right.
But it's good that my passion, I look at it as it's good that I'm passionate that if I'm going to lose, it better mean something, right? I want it to mean something.
Right.
It's probably one of the reasons I've been so successful. But I don't know if I'm going to win or lose against Scotty Too Hottie. But I think this is more importantly, it's just about going out there for this one night and putting on a great match. You get a chance to wrestle somebody who's been on the biggest stage there is, WrestleManias, all that good stuff. Man, it's so cool.
Oh yeah,
it's fun to get to wrestle some names like this. It's gonna be fun. There's JTG's on the card, Ken Anderson's on the card, Teddy Long's on the card, EC3's on the card. I'm sure I'm missing one or two on there, but there's gonna be some big matches. It's gonna be. If you guys can make it in for that one, Jared, you should make it in for this one. This is the biggest show WFC does.
Yeah,
August 5th.
Yeah.
So be looking out for that, guys. Coming up here in just a few weeks.
All right, man. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's definitely. It looks like it's going to turn out to be a really cool show.
Yes, and you can find me on JustinRules.com. My screen name on Instagram is Unbreakable Justin Lee, and on TikTok I'm Broken Arrow Bad Boy.
Yeah.
YouTube Broken Arrow Bad Boy as well. So if you guys want to find me, I'm on all those.
All kinds of great matches out there on your YouTube page and all that.
And even some bad really cool ones. Stuff. No, I just did the morning show that day. I just uploaded that one too. So
okay,
I was in rare form hosting the morning show. She actually let me do a little hosting this time too. She let me do the teleprompter stuff. Oh,
that's cool.
And I'll let you in on this. I've actually written a book. It's first draft's done. They're just doing some revisions on it. All about the Oklahoma indie wrestling scene through my eyes from the year 1999 through all the way up through retirement in 2014. And it just goes into all these great stories about all these guys and just, even if you don't know who I'm talking about, it's a great snapshot of what indie wrestling was like in that era. And my story would be very similar to many guys' stories. So if you kind of want to learn about the history of indie wrestling in this area and what it was like from 99 to 2014, be looking for that. The working title right now is Becoming Unbreakable. That title might change, but be looking for that very soon.
Awesome, man! I can't wait to see that.
Yes, it'll be good. I'll get you first copy.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, you have a great night, and I can't wait to do this again. This was a lot of fun. Hey,
always be Batman. Be yourself unless you can be Batman.
That's
always
right.
Be Batman. Good seeing you.
Hey, listener. This is a not paid for product placement for the Zero to Hero podcast.
What do you
If
mean
you
not
definitely
paid?
like what you're listening to now, come on over to the
How the
Zero to
fuck am I
Hero
keeping my
podcast.
Lights on. Just
Anywhere you want to be able to find your podcast
the
at,
trash bills.
like
due
Apple
next week.
Podcasts,
What
Spotify, Amazon Podcasts,
How the
and
hell
Google
am I gonna keep
Podcasts,
my
which
god
still a little
boys in
weird.
for the next 2 weeks? All
Come
the
on over
pre-orders are
and
starting to
enjoy
fucking
yourself
drop.
and listen to Billy and myself bicker, argue, and, well,
Speaking of the
fight
dog,
about a lot of
no
things,
goddamn
as
dog
we
food
are the
for
bulk
the
and
next
skull
2
of
weeks.
podcasting.
How the hell am I
Good
gonna
luck
get
out there,
money
and
for-
welcome back to the show.
All right, Deputy. Dispatch says there's a gas station robbery in progress. Fire it up and let's go. Deputy? Deputy!
Ow!
What's wrong with you? Didn't you hear me?
I'm sorry, Sheriff. I was just really wrapped up in this story on peculiar turnips.
You're listening to stories about turnips.
No, peculiar turnips. It's a podcast with all original stories. Oh, it's a trip. Some of these would be nightmare fuel if they weren't so daggone funny. And some of them will hit you in the feels, too.
Is that why you were laughing and crying earlier?
Well, yeah.
Oh, I thought you got your medication mixed up or something.
Oh, come on. Where else will you hear a story about a lovesick boy who throws a penny in a wishing well, makes a wish for a happily ever after, but a strange man inside the well keeps giving the penny back because his wish is impossible to grant? Or the one about a rose garden that replays your memories right in front of you? I kind of teared up over that one.
How long does it take to rob a gas station again?
Not too awful long. Why?
We probably got time to listen to one of them stories.
For strange, original, and mostly family-friendly stories that you'll never hear anywhere else, catch Peculiar Turnips on Spotify or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Or visit peculiarturnips.libsyn.com. That's peculiarturnips.libsyn.com. Come out to the garden for a homegrown story.
All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that part 2 of me and Justin Lee talking about Batman. It was a lot of fun. And we've already started planning for the next time that he's going to be on the show. So be on the lookout for that. I've got some really good guests that are coming, and I'll be able to tell you about a few because I've actually already recorded a couple. And I'm really, really looking forward to putting these episodes out for you guys to hear. The next one that you'll hear will be my conversation that I had with Xander Gold in the middle of a wrestling ring. First time I ever got to do that. You guys saw me post something on social media about being able to do that, and you'll be able to hear that episode next week. So make sure that you tune in and listen to that one as well. And then the week after that, I will be having on John Bloodworth, or as a lot of people know him, as John Cross, a wrestler out of the Oklahoma area. We got to talk about all kinds of things wrestling. We got to talk about his personal training and all the things that he does now. And we even talked about anime a little bit. So I'm really looking forward for you guys to hear that episode. Really excited about it. And just stay tuned, and I will be letting you guys know with any changes that are coming up in the show, or if anything else is coming up that maybe you guys would want to know about. If you want to follow me online, then you can do so by going to Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or even Twitter or Threads. I am on all of those places. Just look up If You Give a Data Podcast. You can find me on any one of those. If you want to send me an email, you can do so by sending it to giveadatapodcast@gmail.com. I love hearing from you guys. I love interacting with you guys. So send me a line. Tell me what you think about the show. If there's something you want me to talk about, or if maybe there's a guest that you want me to bring on, either send me an email or send me a message on one of my social medias, and I will try to get that set up. So I want to give a shout out to all 3 of my podcast networks. That is the OIW Podcast Network, the Avenue Podcast Network, and Zero to Hero Podcast Network. All kinds of great shows can be found on each and every one of those. I love being a part of each of these. They bring so many different types of podcasts to the table, whether it be travel podcasts or wrestling podcasts or toy podcasts, or even if you want to hear original stories or fan fiction stories, go to any one of these and you can find those types of shows. I love being a part of each of them. Like I said, they're great guys over at Zero to Hero. All the guys at OIW are great. And all the people over at Avenue Podcast are great. So just make sure that you go out there and follow each of them. I will have a link to all 3 of their websites in my show notes. Make sure that you go and give them some love. So I have merch out. As you guys know, I have t-shirts, I have mugs, I have stickers, and I will soon have magnets and all kinds of other things. So make sure that you go out there and you grab some of this merch. That way you can support If You Give a Dad a Podcast. I also want to give a shout out to D-Cure for making my ending theme song for me. You hear it at the end of every one of my episodes. And guy's awesome. Comes out with some great music. If you like what you hear, make sure you go out there and follow him. You can find his music on Spotify and anywhere else that you can find music. I will have a link to his website in my show notes as well. I also want to give a shout out to Nick Helms. He is the creator of Original Geek Comics. They gave me a spot in their newest comic that's coming out called Paladin. Make sure that you go out there and you find their stuff. Get their comic books. It's great stories, and it's just a lot of fun. You guys would enjoy reading these comics as much as me. Like I said, I will have a link to him in my show notes as well. So as you guys are listening to this, make sure that you go out there and you rate and review this episode. Tell me whether you like it or whether you don't. And also make sure that you share this with other people. That way they will see this episode and be like, hey, this is a podcast I listen to, and I think you would like it too. Also, make sure that you're subscribed and you've hit that notification bell. That way that you know exactly when a new episode of iGadap is ready to go. I always love doing this. This is probably one of my favorite parts of my week. I've got some cool things that are going to be coming up here really soon that I can't wait to announce. You guys will probably be seeing it in the next few days. So stay tuned. You're going to see some really cool stuff coming out, whether it be with this podcast or with me in general. So, yeah, just stay tuned. Dad joke of the week. What do you call a man who refuses to fart in public? A private tutor. All right. I love you guys. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye.
On. He calls us beautiful people, then tells us who we have on. The best part of my day, the world blocked out in my pods. Tell my friends all about it so that they follow along. And the host is kinda nerdy, but guess what, I am as well. I don't feel so alone, and I began walking out of my shell. Heard a story, I need a connection I haven't felt. I'll be looking for the next one, till then farewell. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. Listen closely, download and tune in remotely. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. And listen closely, download and tune in remotely.
This podcast is part of the OIW Podcasting Network.